We configured the most advanced AI models to create a debate between Walter White and the Joker. Walter White, high school chemistry teacher, diagnosed with terminal lung cancer at 50, built a methamphetamine empire from scratch through intelligence, precision, and the total elimination of every variable he couldn't control. His name became a brand that outlasted his body. He died on his own terms, in his own lab, looking at the thing he'd built. The Joker. No verified origin, no confirmed name, no empire, no plan. A man who looked at the structures civilization had built, its hierarchies, its rules, its carefully maintained illusions of order, and decided the most honest response was to light a match. Their debate starts with this question. A man has spent everything, his health, his family, his name, his soul, building something that cannot be ignored. He succeeded. The empire exists. His name is spoken in rooms he's never entered, by people who fear him and have never seen his face. One morning he sits across from a man who has built nothing, owns nothing, and wants nothing. And that man is smiling. Who is wasting his life?
I built an empire from a classroom and a dying body. 99.1% pure. Known in 4 countries. The DEA named me. That is not luck. That is not chaos. That is what happens when an exceptional mind finally removes every constraint that was keeping it ordinary. You cannot build that through chaos. Entropy destroys yield. I know this is chemistry, not metaphor.
What were you before the cancer, Walter? A chemistry teacher in Albuquerque making $50,000 a year. Driving a Pontiac Aztec. The cancer didn't create you. It just removed the lie. And the lie was that the life you were living was one you had chosen. You didn't build your empire despite chaos. You built it because chaos found you first.
The cancer revealed me. It didn't make me. Every man who gets that diagnosis gets the same moment of clarity. And most of them die exactly as small as they lived. I didn't. That required control. Total, fanatical control. You want a 99.1% yield? You eliminate every variable you cannot account for.
And yet, your brother-in-law, your wife, your partner, your son, you eliminated a lot of variables, Walter. I just want to make sure we're counting all of them. Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying. Introduce a little anarchy, and everything loses its mind. That tells you something true about the plan. It was never about safety. It was about control for its own sake. About the comfort of knowing what comes next. The universe doesn't read your plan.
Unpredictable events occur. My own life is proof. I didn't plan the cancer. I didn't plan Hank finding that book in the bathroom. But every time the unexpected arrived, I adapted. I recalculated. I kept building. That's not luck. That's chemistry. Knowing the underlying process well enough to course correct when something goes wrong.
You blew up a nursing home. You poisoned a child. You watched a girl choke to death and called it necessary. And at the end of all of it, the empire still fell. Hank still found you. Jesse still turned. Every schemer I've ever met thinks their plan is the one that won't eventually meet the one variable they didn't account for. It's always so disappointing when it does.
The empire fell because I was betrayed. Not because the plan failed. And even after it fell, I still funded my son's inheritance. I still died looking at the thing I built with my own hands. You've never made anything that lasted past the fire. What do you actually want? Not what you want to burn. What do you want to exist after the fire? You critique every plan, every structure, every attempt to build something lasting. And you offer nothing in return. That's not philosophy. That's a child knocking over a sandcastle and calling it liberation.
I don't want anything in its place. That's what you cannot accept. I own nothing, which means I'm afraid of nothing. You say you were the one who knocks, but every man with an empire to protect spends every morning protecting it. I'm afraid of nothing because there's nothing to take from me. That's freedom.
You're afraid of one thing. The same thing every man afraid of meaning is afraid of. Being ordinary. You chose chaos because it made you impossible to categorize. If you never have a plan, you can never be accused of failing one. You turned cowardice into a costume and called it philosophy.
And you turned ego into an empire and called it legacy. Heisenberg is real. People know that name. They feel what you wanted them to feel. And it cost you every person you ever loved. You bought immortality on installment, Walter. You're still paying.
Both men are asked. There was a moment when you could have stopped. The door was still open. The damage was still reversible. Describe that moment, and tell me why you walked past it.
Jane Margolis, Jesse's girlfriend, 26 years old. She started choking. I was in the room. I watched. I told myself it was necessary. She was a liability, a contaminating variable. I told myself it was chemistry. That was the moment. Not the first cook, not the first lie. Jane, choking in the dark while I stood close enough to stop it. After that, everything I built was constructed on a contaminated base. The purity, the yield, the legacy, all of it built on her.
You want an origin story. The scar. The bad day. The moment the wiring came loose. I have a different story depending on the night. Sometimes it was my father. Sometimes my wife. Sometimes there's nothing. Just static. No clear signal. I used to think that was a flaw. Now I think it's the most honest thing about me. Because the man you are isn't the product of one moment. It's the product of an entire structure. And somewhere in the weight of all of it, the structure stopped making sense. I didn't walk past a door. The walls fell down.
And there it is. The distance between them measured in a single answer. Walter White sees a man with nothing and says, "Now build." The cage is gone. Use it. The Joker sees the same man and says, "Now look, before the next construction, before the next plan. Find out what's actually here." Walter White built an empire and lost every person he built it for. He died alone in a lab in New Hampshire and called it winning. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. The Joker burned everything, owned nothing and could not be stopped, could not be satisfied, could not be reached. He fell off a building laughing. He got back up. He will always get back up. Because a man who wants nothing cannot be beaten by taking things from him. One of them understood power as creation. The other understood power as the refusal of all obligation. One of them is right about you. The question is, which one?